February 5th, Fenway Rundown. Chris Cotillo, Sean McAdam. And this is the end of an era. No, we're not going anywhere, but this is our last home studio
Our last cold
podcast.
weather pod for a while.
Yeah. Until, like, in 3 weeks when we have a hiatus during spring training and we both do this exact same setup. But for now, this is our last off-season podcast that'll come to you from our Massachusetts home studios, which are my apartment and Sean's house. We will be in spring training starting on Monday. It's a really, really quick hook from football season to baseball season, Super Bowl Sunday. Sean will be on his way down along with Chris Smith. On Monday, I will join the proceedings, and the Red Sox will have availabilities for the media on Monday. Alex Cora, Craig Breslow, pitchers and catchers will be there by Tuesday. It'll be full pitchers and catchers workouts. A lot of guys are already there because of the WBC. Position players will trickle in, and really by 2 weeks from today, it's going to be in full swing, and you're getting at that point really close to games. I guess the first game is 2 weeks from tomorrow, right, against
Yep.
Northeastern. So,
Yep.
pretty crazy. And of course, we will have, as the kids say, team coverage down there between
Kids
Sean,
don't say
myself,
that.
and Chris. Huh?
Kids don't say that.
That's fair. Between the three of us down there, kind of, back and forth, but we'll have you covered for a huge chunk of the time, including, the first week where there's a lot of headlines, moves, those types of things. As we planned to do this podcast last night, my original plan was, well, in the wake of no news, let us, set the table for spring training by kind of talking about what questions remain unanswered. That was the theme of Sean's MLB Notebook last Friday. But we're going to pivot, just as the Red Sox have done this offseason. Sean, I told you privately that my favorite thing John Sterling ever did on the airwaves during his time
Careful.
calling the Yankees was the way he pronounced Isiah Kiner-Falefa's name. And it was
And
something
how
to
did he do that,
it
Chris, for
was
the
something to the tune
uninitiated?
of, and here's Kiner-Falefa, in the most dramatic terms you could possibly imagine. One
What
of my
what was the home run call? Not that that came up a lot.
I don't know. He didn't, twice a year. I didn't get it. But that was the news last night. The Red Sox have signed Kiner-Falefa.
Isaiah is a prophet.
Was it?
I don't know. What?
No, it could be. I don't know.
Yeah.
Luckily we don't have to worry about that. That's for, a biannual Will Fleming problem from now on. But I like it. Sometimes I'm chronically on my phone. You are 80% because that's what the job requires. But sometimes you'll disappear from your phone for like 90 minutes, and then when I'll call you to tell you there's news, I'm writing it, whatever. We coordinate with Smith, all that stuff. Last night you were flying blind when this happened. You were eating dinner away from your phone, and I informed you over the phone. And to take the listener behind the scenes on the MassLive process here, again, everybody thinks we hate each other, so the fact that we're talking outside of the pod is shocking. One of our four-a-day phone calls. I told you they signed Isiah Kiner-Falefa. Your first couple of things you said were, is it a major league deal, which is telling, and if it is, you were estimating 2 million, 3 million. The answer, as we told the readers a couple hours later, 1 year for 6 million, which
It's a
is a
head
head
scratcher.
scratcher. There you go. In unison. And I'll let you take it from there because I'm not high on this move, but you're even more low on this move.
Well, yeah, I think we need to put it into context. In and of itself, money aside, which I still think is a significant overpay,
Yeah.
but let's put that aside for a moment. It's not a bad depth move. This is a guy that can play three infield positions and play them well. He's been on some competitive teams, Blue Jays for parts of each of the last two seasons, Yankees for a while, Texas when they were good. So that's a positive. But if they are thinking, and I think fortunately for Red Sox fans, they're not, but if they were thinking that this guy's going to be an everyday player, I would be coming down on them a lot harder because I don't think either one of us feel he is an everyday player for a competitive playoff oriented team.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's going to be part of a platoon at either second or third, or just a super utility guy, or a late inning defensive replacement, not bad, but too costly if we're getting down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah, and the point you made in our phone conversation last night is a good one that that's not what this team needs. They have those guys. I mean, you can pick at flaws, and there are flaws with the David Hamiltons, Nick Sogard, Nate Eaton, Romy Gonzalez in a little different bucket because he's so good against lefties. But they have those four guys, and if I don't think they're going to mix Campbell in the infield, but he's there, and Mikey Romero could come up, and Meyer can move around. Like the infield depth thing in a pinch, if you need guys who've been in the majors to give you 2 weeks, we've seen Hamilton, and neither of us are very high on him, of course. We've said that on the pod. Like we've seen him, use his speed and be a productive offensive player for a month at a time. You think he's pretty good defensively. Sogard is a guy who, was okay down the stretch. Eaton is a guy that they seem to like. Like there's guys who you feel like could do that. To add another guy to that mix that is not spectacular among that mix, but cost you 6 million, which not the end of the world, but does matter in the grand scheme, is confusing. I think like you made the point. If you bring this guy in a minor league deal in a few weeks, maybe it's different. This is not a minor league deal, and 6 million suggests that there's some good playing time here. And it also suggests that there was a market. I don't think the Red Sox were bidding against themselves for Kiner-Falefa. So the role really will determine everything when it
Right.
comes to this.
Right.
It's just
It's
a
hard to
really,
judge
really,
this
really,
role.
really strange
It's
fit.
it's hard to judge this signing in a vacuum because we don't know what their plans are for him.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure they know because they are telling people they want to do more.
Yeah.
So, you know, saying that and doing it are two different things. Maybe they think they can go make a trade for something that they previously said no to, and they've decided, yeah, you know what? Whatever Houston's asking for Paredes, we're going to do that. And then he's going to be our everyday third baseman, and Meyer's going to get most of the playing time at second, and Kiner-Falefa is going to move around and help out at all three of those. Okay. But I don't think they know because they don't know what that second move is, and there's a lot of dominoes in play here.
Yeah.
And the other thing we talked about last night, our boss right now, his head is exploding because he hates when we refer to off
Yeah. Hi,
like
Jim.
conversations. Love you, Jim. But it's true. You only have four bench players on your 26-man roster. Assuming a 13-man pitching staff, we have no reason to believe they're going to be more, or they can't be more by rules. We have no reason to think they're going to try to go with 12. So that gives you four bench guys in terms of position players. One of those is a backup catcher. Hello, Connor Wong, we assume. One of those is going to be the extra outfielder, and by extra, we mean somebody pretty good, like Jaron Duran or Ceddanne Raffaello.
Well, let's assume one of those four guys is the DH, and then that puts the spot you're talking about is Yoshida.
Okay, so you got to find somebody to either take that money, or you got to swallow hard and release all that money, or you got to keep him knowing that he's very limited in what he's going to do for you.
Right.
And then you have one more guy.
Yeah.
So that if Meyer is your starting whatever in the infield and somebody else, let's say it's Paredes, let's say they get a deal done there, then Kiner-Falefa is your only backup infielder. So no room for Nick Sogard, no room for Nate Eaton, no room for I guess Eaton could be the right-handed hitting outfielder who could contribute in the infield.
Well, and you figure Romy's on this team, right?
You do, but how do you if you're having somebody else play an everyday position, either second or third, whatever Meyer is not doing?
Well, it would be Wong, Yoshida, Kiner-Falefa, and Romy would be the four, right? That would be. I mean, it gets crowded quick. They didn't need another bench guy. Is the point,
right? Or if they do, they're going to elbow out somebody like Hamilton or Sogard or maybe Eaton. And, it's hard to know how workable that roster is going to be. Again, we are stumbling along in the dark here because we don't know what the next shoe to drop is going to be. There's a good chance they don't know what the next move is going to be. but they are intent on upgrading it infield so that the next guy they bring in is going to be more of an absolutely, yeah, he's going to play just about every day.
Yeah.
Whether that's at second or third, we'll figure it out. It just seems like a lot of money to pay for a glorified utility infielder.
Yeah. Well, and I think, because you also have guys that can do that on the roster making 700, 800,000. Like this is, I guess, you can look at it as a big market move, like going and getting a guy and whatever. I wouldn't. But Hamilton, Sogard, those types of guys are all making that major league minimum less than 800,000. The roster flexibility pays into it or
Yeah,
plays into
you're
it.
talking about more than $5 million difference in the
Yeah.
salary between what you're going to pay him and what you would pay any of those other three guys to fill that role.
And it's more than, some of these other guys. I know, Andujar has kind of reinvented himself as an outfielder over the last couple of years. He's a utility guy too. Let's see what he obviously, signed with San Diego right
Just 2
after
million, right?
last night. He got four. He was a DH mostly with Cincinnati last year, but played a lot of third last year, played left. So he's a guy that could play everywhere. He got 4 million offensively, much better, much better than Kiner-Falefa, an 822 OPS, and some pop there, more 10 home runs. Can't believe he had 27 home runs as a rookie in 18. Who would have known? But I like or Ahmed Rosario signed for 2 million a few weeks ago, and there's different guys. I'm surprised the number came in at six. I would have guessed in that 2 to 4 range.
Yep.
Again, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter unless you're dealing with finite resources, and they kind of are. And to the roster question you were just talking about, the stuff that we just let's assume the four outfielders stay. You have all three of those outfielders mixing in. Let's say Abreu's in right every day. Cedon is in center every day. And Anthony and Duran are either playing left or the DH. So that's your four spots. And you have Meyer in the addition starting most of the games in the infield or platoon, whatever you want. Then you get to the bench. And then you get to when Tristan Casas is ready and when Christian Campbell is producing. That's a guy further squeezed out. I don't
Yep.
think they'd want Campbell on the bench in a perfect world anyway, but like there's a lot of position players that are maybes, and that's what they're doing here. They're adding another maybe to the mix when you needed some high-end certainty. So here's my tinfoil hat, Sean. Like, I don't really think it matters if they trade one of those utility guys. They very well could. Um, could they be either looking at Meyer differently than we are or willing to move him in a bigger package?
I mean, I guess my question would be why move him now when his value has sunk some because of his
Yeah.
physical status? He's still pretty highly thought of. A lot of people, if he hadn't played his 50 games last year, he would still be probably a top 20 prospect in the game. But people are going to have the same questions about his durability that we are asking. And it seems like a strange time to move him. Uh, you know, let him rebuild value. Let him figure out where he belongs here. Let him say, let's see what it looks like when he's playing 5 times a week somewhere.
Hmm.
And, remember that this guy was at times over the last 3 or 4 years, the number one prospect in the organization and at times a top 10 prospect in the industry.
Yeah.
I find this a very strange time to sell low on him.
Yeah. No, I agree with that all. I'm just trying to make sense of the move that was made last night. So, I mean, if you are bringing Kiner-Falefa in, he's going to take not just the money, but assume, a relatively not a nothing role. You look at kind of what he has done last year, and obviously most of this was in Pittsburgh where there's opportunities abound. 459 plate appearances. The year before, 496. Like this is a guy that has not been a 50, 60 game guy throughout his career. And the fact that there's incentives based on plate appearances that he took the deal means I think he thinks that he's going to have, a pretty good role. So it's just confusing. It's confounding. It's head scratching, all that type of stuff. What I did take away from really looking into this player, who of course we know enough about based on, he's been in the division, he's been in the big markets, he's been on the big stage like the World Series. You couldn't have. I mean, I could not have possibly told you how bad he is offensively. Like you figure that a guy who's been around now for 8 years and has played meaningful games and it's kind of a well-known guy, all that type of stuff, like that he would have had some pretty good offensive years in the mix. There's not really that in here, and last year was
He
really,
does not
really,
have
really,
to
really
put it
bad.
in perspective. He does not have a full season
Yep.
in which he had an OPS as high, and I use that term advisedly, as 700.
Right. I
And
mean, it's
his
crazy.
and his career OPS plus, and remember 100 being average, is 82.
hmm And that is a number that has gone down uh, in 2025. It was a 76. So we hit 262, which, there's a little bit of bat to ball there. Uh, two homers, 21 doubles,
Has never hit more than 8 homers in a season.
two triples, and a 631 OPS, which is putrid. I mean, that's,
And
you know,
what's the career slug, like 340?
yeah, 349.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just you look at, and it's a huge, huge sample of 3,300 at bats. I mean, this is a guy that, like, he is what he is when it comes to the offensive part of it. And I guess, the strikeout rate has always been okay. The chase rate, the whiff rate elite last year, and he squares up the ball at a good, but like, look at some of these numbers on StatCast. Expected slugging, first percentile. Expected weighted on base, second percentile. Average exit velocity, first percentile. Barrel percentage, second. Hard hit, fifth percentile. Sweet spot, seventh. Bat speed, second. Walk rate, second. I mean, this is a guy that he doesn't chase pitches out of, or he doesn't swing and miss that often. Other than that, it's an awful, awful, awful offensive profile for a
Yep.
team that needs offense. And so,
Well, this
look,
more that this is more evidence of that pivot that we started hearing about a couple of weeks ago, where it was all of a sudden important to find a plus defender for the infield. But that's a pretty big jump from the chief baseball officer in the first public press conference of the offseason saying, we need to get more slug. We need more pop. We need to hit more homers. Now, all of a sudden, you have a decidedly below average offensive contributor, but he's going to play regularly because he can catch the ball and,
yeah,
and turn balls in play into outs, and he can do that. And I think there's value to having a guy who you can depend on to play shortstop. He can do that.
hmm
And maybe sit Trevor Story once a week so that he's not playing 155 games. Nobody benefits from that again. They did it out of desperation a year ago. It would be nice to have someone they could entrust the position to on days he's not in there, and know that the plays are going to be made. But if you're talking about anything more than a utility slash defensive replacement, then you're probably asking for trouble.
yeah, and that's I think part of what makes this as confusing as it is. So that's the move. And I think it like looks at it causes you to look at the bigger picture here a little bit of like how far they've veered off from plan A. Like, are the Red Sox going to be better in 2026 than they were in 2025 when you look at the rotation potentially being a lot better, which everybody thinks is possible with Gray and with Suarez and with Giolito out? Um, with Contreras, I think is going to be pretty good. I think he's
Yep.
going to be a little bit better than you do, but when you look at like how they wanted to, pursue, like to me, between Gray and Oviedo, and you get to the winter meetings, if you were to add, think about it if it went this way. You get Gray and Oviedo, and then you're heading into, you're at New Year's with, those guys in tow, and you then get Contreras, you're good to go. and you just sign Bregman, like that's a great offseason. That's it. And what's hinged on,
or trade for Marte.
yeah, right. And now, like, you see how the backup plans to that are, well, Suarez and better infield defense and this kind of piecemeal thing that's happening. And I think, I still think we think there's one more shoe to drop somewhere. Um, but kind of hard to see exactly how that fits in. There's been other moves this week that the Red Sox have made. I know we recorded on Monday, but um, there have been three other kind of minor additions, so we'll touch on those. Kyle Keller, I think, is the most interesting non-roster invite in camp. A guy who has really pitched well in Japan over the last 4 years. A guy that is going to get an opportunity to really fit into that late inning bullpen role. I still think they should add, a bona fide big leaguer in there. They still have not. But a guy that if he has a good camp, could come in, and we've seen guys come back and be good. No sure thing, no guarantee. Somewhat interesting. Matt Thaiss is a guy that is a catcher with a lot of big league experience. He's a guy that if he's in Worcester, you could trust to come up for a month or so if Wong is out, or if Wong's not playing well and you want to option him, and Thaiss is playing well in Worcester, that's a guy
Yep.
that's in the mix. And yesterday, the Mick man comes back, Mickey Gasper, on a waiver claim. They're just clearly looking for catching depth. He's another guy in that mold, really. I know he plays all over the place. He was available. They had a 40-man roster spot. Now they're going to be back to full with Kiner-Falefa. They'll get one spot back when Houck goes on the IL. But if they need the spot, they can obviously DFA Mickey Gasper, just a guy that, they're fine stashing in Worcester, and he still has options and all that stuff. To me, in this mix, I think Keller's the most interesting by
Yeah.
far. Um,
Well, the fact that he can make almost $2 million
yeah,
with some incentives tells you that there are expectations there, that this is not one of those dime a dozen NRI guys, non-roster invitees, who's going to get,
hmm
you know,
and a
three or
really
four.
uninspiring NRI class outside of him, by the way.
Yeah,
Very.
yeah, it is. But I agree with you. He's probably got the best chance of anyone to emerge from that group just because of what he's done in Japan and the fact that he throws hard and can get some swing and miss, and the fact that they were willing to give him a decent amount of money for one of those guys should he make the major league roster is an indication that they recognize the value there.
Yep. And the interesting little detail there is, and it's great, a great one for the Red Sox, actually. They don't have to make a call on him for opening day. They can assign him to Worcester, and his first ability to opt out comes in mid-April, like April 15th, April 20th. So you get to see 3 weeks at Worcester. 99% of the time with guys in that boat, they are a certain class of free agent that contractually have an opt out 2 days or 5 days before the end of spring training. Well, he wasn't one of those because he was an international free agent, technically. And so he is kind of a loophole there that allows him to see 3 weeks at Worcester. So
Yep.
even if he doesn't make the team, you could see that, and maybe a
Well,
decision's
and we've
forced.
said that it's almost a slam dunk
Yep,
that the 26 on the line at Great American Ballpark or whatever it is in Cincinnati on
that's it.
Thursday, the 26th, um, will not be the same 26 when they get home 7 days later.
Yep.
It's become almost a rite of passage in the first week or 10 days that somebody has a couple of bad outings and, the shuttle to Worcester starts motoring pretty quickly in the season. And if he doesn't make the team out of spring, it may not be long before he gets a look. And there's probably some other guys in that class too.
And so he's, interesting, I think, and these are there's a lot of guys that are still available on NRI, non-roster invites that'll take these deals in the next couple weeks. We should create an all-star team. And I tweeted something about this a couple weeks ago of all the guys that have come into Red Sox camp, big names who have come in and been there. Carlos Quentin was one of them. Derek Holland was with them for a few weeks last year. Adam Ottavino and Matt Moore were big days when they arrived at camp, never to pitch
Yep.
really in the majors again. I mean, Ottavino got a couple of outings with the Yankees, but there's always that. There's always the guy that comes in and, is usually cut by the end of camp. But why not? I'm sure we'll have a couple of those more
Yeah,
too.
I mean, and even, more It's not just relievers, it's often relievers because they're the most
Right.
fungible part of the roster. But even 10 years ago, Grady Sizemore in a comeback comes
Yep.
in as an
Well, that was a
NRI
major league
guy.
deal. They paid him, I think, more money than they should have.
No, that's right.
But there's not a lot of really interesting like they don't have a lot of like top prospects who you're going to be seeing in spring training like they did a year ago, and they don't have a lot of like big names. So the non-roster class is like a lot of filler, and that's important because of the World Baseball Classic, which we'll segue to and close the show with. I have been in the weeds on the World Baseball Classic reporting over the last few days. Like I haven't been on the phone for hours and hours and hours, but I've been checking in with Red Sox people. I've been checking in with people, in the league and agents and different things about, just this process. This is a family show. And so I can't finish the word cluster with the word that it should end with. But I mean, you couldn't possibly believe how much of a disaster this this is. I mean, it's just really across the board a complete bleep show. And
Yep.
you know,
And shame on baseball for wanting this to be a big deal. And it
and it
has the
was last
potential.
time.
Yeah, it was. And it has the potential to be so again, but to not take care of the details on a lot of these insurance issues where guys are unsure, 2 weeks out, whether they're participating or not because they can't get their
Hmm.
contracts insured.
And so
And Major League Baseball uh, has egg on its face here for not taking care of some of this stuff and eliminating the distractions and potential roadblocks for guys who are volunteering to do this.
yeah, like there's so many complicated details. What it boils down to is a couple of the big injuries last time, and Evan Drellick, friend of some programs, including this one. Um, it does a good job covering the business of baseball for the Athletic. Hate to say it out loud. And he had talked about on Foul Territory that the insurance company, whatever it is that insures these players by, the policies that they, take care of the salaries in case somebody gets hurt for the teams, whatever, took a bath last time because guys like Edwin Diaz got hurt. And I know there's another big injury at some point. And so therefore they had just really, really strict rules on hey, if you were on the 60-day IL last year, if you had a surgery at any point last year, we're not going to risk it. Like you're too risky, and we're not going to do that because we can't lose as much money as we did a few years ago. Whether that comes down to the league paying for some of that,
Yeah,
or like I don't know what it is, what the solution is. They should have figured it out.
right.
Just to put it in perspective, trying to get a simple answer from people with the Red Sox, and I don't think it's mostly I don't think it's their fault. I don't think that they're going to be really upset if some of their key players don't play in this thing, but at the end of the day, they have to let them if they're approved, whatever. Trying to get a simple answer this week out of okay, so is he playing? Like the answers I was getting from them, from agents, from people with other teams talking about it was I literally cannot say for sure on anyone at
Yep.
this point. And that's in the with the backdrop of number one, rosters are announced tonight. Number two, you've seen these guys get like Garrett Whitlock was announced as a Team USA participant in November.
Yep.
Can I sit here with 100% certainty and tell you he's on that team? Actually, no. I mean, I think he will be, and the indications are that he's, going to go to Arizona and train with them in a few weeks and all that type of stuff, and it's all systems go, it seems. But no one was willing to put an 100% guarantee on any of those things. From Yoshida, it seems like just figured his situation out yesterday.
Right.
The Red Sox expect that Wilson Contreras, who has been saying for like 2 months that he wants to play for Venezuela, they're not going to know his status until a couple weeks into camp. I mean, it's just a disaster. Like, you should be able to figure out these rosters. Puerto Rico apparently got denied on Lindor. Correa and Baez, who are like the lifeblood of that team.
Yep.
Obviously, I'm sure Cora will have something to say about it next week, if asked or if not asked, actually. Um, it's just like this should not be this dark cloud over what's a really good event. There is injury risk. We understand that. But, like the roster announcement show tonight, yeah, some of those guys are going to get scratched. Some guys are going to get added. Like, it's been a head scratcher. And basically every single person in baseball you talk to is throwing their hands up and saying, we cannot believe how bad this has gotten.
Yep.
I know it's a minor thing. I know it's kind of a niche interest. Some
Oh,
people really like it, some people don't,
right.
but they got to do better.
Yeah, and it's gonna, you know, even if it gets resolved in a positive way here in the next day and week or whatever, it's going to hang over it next time, 3 years from now.
Yep.
And some guys are going to be like, you know what? I don't want to go through this anymore. It's not worth it.
Yep.
And
And
that's too
and
bad.
the specter of, and this is a conversation for a different day, of course, but the Olympics in 28 and things like that, like, that's a whole different animal because it's in the middle of the season, but I'm sure the same types of considerations will come into play, and uh for a guy like, obviously I think the Red Sox know. I was going to talk about Wilson Contreras, but let's just, take it to somebody who actually has an importance. Wilson Contreras is going to be the starting first baseman on opening day if he's healthy. So that is one thing. But like a guy like Giovanni Moran, so he has this big opportunity to become like the top lefty reliever in the bullpen if they don't add anybody. Well, he was committed to Puerto Rico. He's all in for that. But then he was pulled out due to insurance reasons. So the Red Sox are trying to map out like, okay, we're going to have him in games. Now we're not. Now we are. When is he like? He's been in and out and in and out and in and
Yep.
out like 18 times. He's in and he's going to pitch, I guess, unless Puerto Rico pulls out of the tournament, and then he won't. Like, it's just such a disaster. And I know, like, these people are highly paid to figure it out, but we get there in 5 days, Like, why is it so complicated?
Yep.
And
Should
it all
not
comes
be
down to
left
money
up
as
to,
always.
should not be unsettled this close to the reporting of camp.
So basically, I've tried to tell you, the Red Sox fan, and I say that in jest, but I've tried to just write like, okay, which Red Sox are going to play in this thing and which ones are not, and that's going to continue being kind of a storyline. Um, but like whatever day it starts, March 5th, if a Red Sox player is on the field, then you'll know.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's basically,
Up
I
in the
mean,
air.
Aroldis Chapman has been Great Britain, Great Britain, Great Britain for 4 months, and 2 days before they said, actually, you're not British enough or whatever. Like it's just a disaster across the board. And I am sick of talking about it, so we'll end the podcast there. Barring an emergency, which would be horrible, horrible news
Oh,
this weekend because Sean's got important family events. I have arguably more important event on Saturday as Carolina plays Duke. Um, we will be back with our first spring training podcast earlier in the week.